Hello and welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Fence podcast. I have a pod debut today to chat all things basketball from the NBL's digital media team. Darren Barker, how are you?
I am very well, Ben. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, as I'm sure all your guests say that, but I am honoured.
You'd be surprised, actually, at the level of enthusiasm that usually comes with the guests. It's good to have some fresh opinions for once because I usually just cycle through the same two or three. So yeah, you've already brought a new level of enthusiasm that I won't name names, but I don't know it's
That's
good
all right.
to.
I'm happy to become part of the rotation. I'm happy to talk basketball whenever, so keep that in mind.
Absolutely. We've kind of been following each other for a while now, and I thought this man's got takes, this man's got opinions. I need to get him on to verbalize them at some point. And here you are.
It's always funny when you actually talk to online people for the first time. Like you kind of know each other off Twitter or Instagram or whatever, but if you meet them in person, that's great. But if we get to do it online as well, that's also good. I'll take it.
I mean, in person's a different level of that. That's full commitment.
It's also do you know him? I don't know if I know you. I just know of you.
I always find, because when I go up to Magic Round for the NRL up in Brisbane, I meet up with a lot of people that I've kind of gotten to know through the years. We're getting very off topic to start. This is great. But when I go up there to meet up with people and watch the footy, and it's really weird, oh, hi, I'm Ben, but you know me as this. It's
Yes.
I don't know. That's
It's
why
a
I'm
bit
trying
cringy, but it's cringy, but it's also it's helpful. You're like, oh, no, I know it, it's all good.
It's like when someone asks you for your Xbox Live name that you made when you were 14. It's I'd rather not give that to you.
It reminds me of when people ask what your first email address is. Anyway, we're getting way off topic, but I don't mind. You do you do you.
No, no, go for it. Yeah. I mean, what was your first email?
Pass. Pass. Next question, please.
It's been a big, I guess, week in terms of basketball news locally. So I wanted to start with the news that kind of comes around every cycle, but Kyrie Irving's flirtations with the Boomers have surfaced once again, except this time I think there's been a little more substance to it. So I guess we'll see how it goes. But I guess the first thing is, when that came up, what was your initial reaction?
Well, it was kind of weird because it reminds me of the Ben Simmons thing, but that thing, it was never him saying it. It's never him, but it's Kyrie saying it, right? So that just confuses me to begin with. But my initial thought was just why does he want to? What's his actual answer for saying that he wants to be part of the Boomers in the future? That's what I want to know. But I mean, it's exciting. I know people are either for it or against it, and I have a feeling you're going to ask me that soon. But I don't know. It's an interesting one, and I think it's exciting. Anytime a player like that actually says they want to, come across to Australia, why wouldn't we be excited for that? What are your thoughts on it? That's my view.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, initially it's odd timing for it, first of all, because obviously we just had the Olympics last year, and he's going to be 36, I believe, by the time LA rolls around. And there's a sense in me that's he obviously wants to play in the Olympics. Is he kind of just going shopping to see, is he treating this as his international free agency, so to speak? That being said, and I'll segue into my opinion on it, I'd take him. At this point, I guess the thing that's kind of followed Kyrie ever since he left Cleveland really has been what his presence is like in a locker room and all that culture, buzzword sort of stuff. But I think if you look at how the Boomers selection panned out last Olympics with, Matisse not getting in, but that's more just because I love Matisse so much. But to me, if you want to go by that whole Boomers culture umbrella and hide behind that, you can't really defend picking Joe Ingles after he dominates the second half in a random warm-up game against China, and you can't really defend picking Delhi after he was explicitly told to not show up to camp in the first place. So at this point, I'm all for the chaos.
Well, that's what I think. I think I'm with you, but I feel like I've seen more people opinions online being we don't want him. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want Kyrie? And I get he had all that off-court drama how many years ago, but now I think he's in a good place. He has a new home in Dallas. I feel like people are actually liking who Kyrie is as the basketball player rather than the person who has some interesting takes on the world. But I don't know. I feel like he's in a good place. So I'd happily take him. I just want to know why he actually wants to do it now and what his actual reason is for doing it. So, if we can literally just ask Kyrie that question, I'd be very, very intrigued.
Yeah, I'll hit him up.
Please.
No, I'm pretty sure. So before the Paris Olympics, he outwardly made himself available for Team USA, and I think him not getting picked in that team has hurt him on a personal
Mm.
level. And whether he's using this to get back at Grant Hill and the whole Team USA process by now publicly going, I want to play for the country of my birth, which is just an odd. I guess it's an odd way to frame it. Like, oh, how weird is it that he wants to play for where he was born? But I mean,
But
it's like,
it's more that he's never been associated with Australia basketball, though, right? So, like you said, if he's going to be 36 and for the first time ever he's going to do it, it does feel extremely weird. But I used to judge people heavily on their ages. I was like, oh, he's going to be 36. Nah, we don't want him. But look, LeBron and Steph and all that in this year have definitely proven that age does not matter. So, 36 Kyrie will happily take him, I say.
well, Paddy was 36 in, I keep saying Tokyo, in Paris. And he, I think, started the tournament slowly, but really warmed into it to the point where that game against Serbia, he almost single-handedly won it for us before, I guess, the wheels kind of fell off in the second half. But yeah, Kyrie's a player who I don't think age really affects his game. He's been the same player pretty much since he got into the league. He's always been, if you just want to talk strictly on court, a player that I've enjoyed watching for years. Just even though my earliest memory of him is him dropping my beloved Brandon Knight in the rookie sophomore game back in in the 2012 All Star. Poor Brandon Knight, what a highlight reel he has against.
Where's
But
Brandon
yeah,
Knight at
like,
these days? Where is that man?
I did look him up because I think I was wallowing in Pistons despair, just like reflecting on where we've come to be where we are now, and I want to say he's in China.
Because he popped up like 5 years ago. He popped up again. I can't remember who it was for or what he did, but he was one of my favorites. I don't even know why I liked him so much, but he was absolutely one of my favorites for no real reason. I'm just like, he could be a star, and he was for a bit. Maybe star, quote unquote, quote star.
He came back to the Pistons. He was part of the trade that sent Andre Drummond to Cleveland. So
Okay.
that was the full. I think that was his last spot in the NBA. And
There
he
you
played
go.
for Dallas. He played for Dallas 3 years ago. He is currently he last played, for a team in Puerto Rico.
Come to the
So-
NBL, maybe. I can make that. I can start that
Well,
rumor if you want.
Did you see? I mean, of course you saw, but like you probably made the graphic. The list of all those old NBA players like interested in the league, and I think John Wall was on there, Isaiah Thomas was on there. It was DeMarcus Cousins, maybe. It was a real who's who. And yeah, he's not the younger end of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, true. I feel like those names are always going to be rumored if they want to, especially Isaiah Thomas. I feel like he's always like online sort of saying, I'm good. I've still got it, guys. Like, give me a chance. I don't know if that's
Slow
in Australia
grind.
or not. Yeah, slow grind. Hashtag.
He's in Utah now, isn't he? Or the G
That's a
League.
very good question. I think, yeah. I think you're right. I should know that.
I think he just had a 10. Yeah, we're getting into real sicko stuff.
The
I
other,
think he just
actually,
had
the other one on Kyrie is what I saw people online talking about, like the FIBA rules. Like, how do they actually do it with, if you've won a
Yeah.
gold, if you've been playing for USA for God knows how long, can you literally just be like, hey guys, I want to go over there and see what I can do? Can you actually do that?
No, so I think you can change nations because a lot of like Thon Maker, for instance, was in the process of changing from Australia because he played for Australia in those famously in those qualification games where he turned into a kickboxer in the Philippines. But then he
Good
also
memory. Yeah.
he played in. I want to say he played in maybe not the World Cup. No, he didn't, not the World Cup. He played in Asia Cup. I think that's what he played in. But he was in the process of switching to South Sudan for the Olympics, but the process started too late and it didn't happen in time. I went on Reddit, which is how you know I'm like really trying to get information because I never go on Reddit. And everything I can see is basically if it's for the good of the development of basketball in that country, then FIBA, like that's the criteria they use to judge it on. And from a strictly commercial or from a strictly basketball, point of view, it's not looking good if you want Kyrie to play for Australia because I think, basketball is a very well-established sport in this country. On the other hand, my argument is playing him would mean not playing a then 38-year-old Matthew Dellavedova, which I think would be very positive to the development of basketball in this country. Although they are former teammates and they do like each other, so Maybe
I
that's
was
the
about to
deal.
say, yeah, no, I was about to say, I wonder how the boomers and veteran boomers would actually feel about Kyrie just doing that. If he's like, nah, I'm in, you're out. But if it's someone like Daly and someone who understands the business, maybe he's like, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, I don't know if you remember, before the 2012 Olympics, Bogut was seriously courting him to come and play for Australia. And I think he ended up staying with the USA. I don't know, I can't remember if he played for the USA in 2012. Where was that? Was that London? I
London.
can't remember if he played for the USA in that Olympics or if it was he started in Rio. But Andrew Bogut at the time was on record as saying, "Yeah, I'm talking to him. I'm trying to gauge his interest and trying to get him to come and play for us." So Bogut is probably as deep into the weeds of the Boomers as any current slash former player. So I'd say if the big man's on board, then everything else falls
Why
into
not?
place.
I agree, and I agree. It's fascinating why he's had a change of mind, but we'll see how it goes.
The other thing that is interesting with Kyrie is FIBA obviously allows one naturalized player per squad. Him being born here, would he count as naturalized or local?
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at these technicalities, but it's a great question. I do not know. I thought you were going to allude to like Bryce Cotton's like citizenship or something.
I am wrapping it all in.
Okay.
I'm wrapping it all into the one
I've read
because
the quote unquote rundown, of course.
yeah, the three words for each point. Yeah, because I don't think he's got a passport anymore. I doubt he would. So I'm like 99% sure he'd count as a naturalized person, which would mean no more Matisse Thybulle. It'd be either him or Kyrie. And as much as I love Matisse, that's a pretty easy call. And then, yeah, depending on whatever happens with Bryce Cotton's seemingly never-ending citizenship, um, like that's obviously an easy choice. But there's a world where they could both be on the Boomers. No, what
True.
am I saying? They're both not. Oh, jeez,
No,
that's
I think you
awful.
just said the opposite, but yes, I
Yeah,
said true anyway, just to back you up.
I like the blind
True.
faith, but no,
Great
it is a
point.
choice between either of them. And
Yes.
I remember having this argument with people years ago, like completely missing the point that part of Cotton's citizenship is for the NBL as well. But I was straight on to well, I'm not picking him over Matisse Thybulle, but yes, there's a whole range of reasons as to why he would get that citizenship. But yeah, uh, he's had such a poorly timed career.
Yeah.
Bryce Cotton just stuck in this red tape because I think if he was like 5 years older or 5 years younger, he would have played several tournaments for the Boomers. And
It's
yeah,
so
here
true.
we are.
It's the one of those unknown things of basketball. We'll never know, but I don't know. It's funny because no one seems to have a good explanation why. It's just like, oh yeah, it's up in the air. Simply put, move on.
It, I just had to look this up because I knew there was a weird example of it. Um, Cotton's citizenship dragging on really, and then you go look at some of these other countries and how they deal with it. So I don't know if you remember Omari Spellman.
But yes, I can't. What college did he go to? That's my question. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Go on.
Villanova. Villanova.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah, had a run in the league with Atlanta, Golden State. Really, like, big dude, famously, like, didn't look like an athlete, but had a lot of skill. Anyway, he popped up again. He popped up,
Blindside. Drive by.
just, you know,
Anyway, go on.
he popped up in 23 because I think he played for Lebanon at the World Cup. And I read it, I was like, oh, is he playing domestically in Lebanon? Like, that's weird. He's the naturalized player, obviously. Is he playing for Lebanon? Sorry, in Lebanon. And no, he was playing in Korea at the time, or Russia, one of the two. And I was like, oh, how's this happened? And then I did some reading on it. He got a special letter from some diplomat in Lebanon for the reasons I just said before. Like, oh, it'll be good for the development of the sport in Lebanon. So if you've got all these other countries, just like like all these other rules, like I don't like cut all this red tape out, come and play for us. And then over here we've got like Bryce Cotton's feet getting dragged through like years and years and years of legal nonsense, then it's just so funny.
It's so weird. It feels like different rules for different people or something. I don't really understand it at all, but who knows?
So then, like obviously, just quickly looking ahead, Kyrie, 36 years old. There's going to be a lot of turnover before the LA Olympics. I mean, you could put a call with like Kyrie, Josh Giddey, Dyson Daniels. That's a pretty good front three. Pretty good starting three. Then Jock Landale'll still be around at the 5. And then there's a 4 spot open for an athletic defender, whether he wants to
True.
play. Whether he wants to play.
It's an age-old question. I'm assuming you're alluding to Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons, he looked very good in one of the Clipper games. I think it was his second game with Clippers. I was a fan of what I saw anyway. We're not going to dive into Ben Simmons, but I was a fan.
No, he's looked really good since, I think, just playing for a team with actual other NBA players and not just whatever Brooklyn were offering up. Although they're playing quite well at the moment as well. I guess relative to expectations. But yeah, Simmons has looked pretty good in his few games for the for the Clippers. But yeah, there's a spot open for him if he wants it.
Why don't we just make it both happen? If Kyrie's coming, get double package, Ben Simmons, just finally do it. Why not? I don't think that will ever happen, but we can hope, we can try.
Because like part of our advantage in 21 when we won the bronze was just we were athletic and we could just run teams off the court, except America, which I'm pretty sure we started Delhi against America, which I thought was so funny, and we didn't start Matisse Thybulle. But anyway, just lean into the athleticism and just run.
Pretty much. It's not a bad game plan, but hey, probably advance. We've probably grown a bit from that, but we'll see.
Speaking of athleticism and running,
hit me.
A terrible segue because I'm really trying to force it in. But news filtering through yesterday that former current whatever Cairns Taipans guard Taran Armstrong has signed a 2-way deal with the Golden State Warriors. So, if you're unaware, anyone listening, he'll spend most of his time in the G League, but he'll be eligible to play in the NBA as well for a limited games. But signing this late in the season, that's pretty much irrelevant. It's more of a get him in for summer league and then like get him in early, see what he's got. But yeah, someone who I thought was maybe on NBA fringes, and it's good to see his progress in Cairns especially this last season, be rewarded.
Yeah, for sure. He's personally one of my favorites. Like, I was always hoping he'd get some sort of NBA gig, but I honestly didn't know if it was like that realistic to happen this quickly. But like you said, like even if it means he doesn't play much, if he's in the G League, whatever, but it's still super cool to see him get that opportunity, because all you need to do is like showcase yourself to the right people, get in front of them, get some eyeballs and see what he can do. But he was one of my highlights for the NBL season. Like, I know Cairns were not so great. They did not do well, but he was one of the highlights for that team and the league in general. And I just think it's going to be interesting how he fits in that sort of play style in terms of, I know it's not going to be with probably the Golden State Warriors, but the G League team, and just see how he plays full stop. Like, the one thing I really enjoyed from his season was how confident he was. Like, I didn't realize he had that kind of confidence, and we sure as hell didn't really see it in year one of Taran Armstrong with Cairns. So who knows? Hopefully that confidence carries over.
Yeah, and he plays with a real swagger. I got to watch him live. The first game I ever went to at my State Bank Arena in Hobart, or the only game I've ever been to, happened to be Tassie versus Cairns, and he just dominated that game with his... I'm pretty sure Tassie won, but... Oh, I actually don't remember now. But he was spectacular. It was basic... Because I remember that game, Rob Edwards had an absolute stinker. He might have even fouled out. Taran Armstrong, the Tassie boy from Burnie up north, just put on an absolute show. A guard who can do it all. I think he's got really good size. He's about 6'4", I want to say. I think
they listed him as 6'6". Well, that's what NBA circles call it. Like, when Shams tweeted that, he's like 6'6" point guard, and I'm like, we'll take it. I don't know if he's that.
Okay, well, on Pro Ballers, he's listed at 6'5", so let's split the difference.
6'8", Taran Armstrong will be very good. I was just going to say quickly, it's kind of fascinating. You touched on like what a scorer he was kind of thing, but everyone knew him as like a playmaker coming out of college. But then it was almost like last season, we didn't forget about his playmaking, but he was legit averaging like 20 for a fair chunk of it. And it's like, oh, I did not realize he could do that either. So that part was cool as well.
Yeah, averaged 17 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists a game. Only played the 19 games, had a bit of injury earlier in the season. You're right. I think when he was in college at Cal Baptist, he was known as a big athletic point guard who really struggled shooting the ball. A kind of player who would attack inside, and I guess teams would try and force him to take the shots. He only, the outside shot, 30%, 31% from three in his college career, and then 25% in his first season in the NBL. But this season, 35% from three. And you can really see, like, once he starts hitting that outside shot, it just opens up his strength, which is that driving lane and the driving kick, or he can finish strong in the lane. He can dunk. I don't know if he's going to dunk on NBA athletes, but he can. He's got a bit of pop about him. I think he's got some. I think we like to say sneaky hops.
Sneaky hops is the term that us Australians adopt, but you're right. Like even the you said 35% from three, but I feel like it was almost the attempts per game that was more like it filled me with more confidence because I don't know if you have that in front of you, but he jumped from like 1 point something to 5 point something in his second year. So that just shows like, hey, I know if I need to get to the next level, I know I actually need to take these threes and not just be, a driver and a playmaker. So I think he's really developed that area.
And you're seeing some clutch threes too, some really big, deep threes. As much as you can be clutch in a team that's going 5 wins in his 19 games that he played. But yeah, just the development in his overall game. And as far as point guard shooters go, you get to sit around and watch Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, just three of the best passers and smartest players in the league. So it's a pretty fair internship.
No, for sure. And I think sometimes a knock on some of these guys is like I don't know how much to use an Aussie term like mongrel Taran Armstrong has, but if you're around guys like Draymond Green and you're around Jimmy Butler who have that kind of, I was going to say psycho personalities, but that's not, I actually love Jimmy Butler. Draymond Green I'm a bit up and down with or whatever, but if you're around
I think
guys
psycho's fair. I think psycho's pretty fair.
Full blown psycho. But if you're around those guys, maybe you just get a bit of that what's the word I'm looking for? But maybe you just get a bit of that stuff about you. Like, you can actually like find that mongrel, find that aggression. So I don't know. There's definitely some positives just being around that culture that they have.
You speak, I think you mentioned before that you didn't know he had that attitude in him. So obviously, and it really came to the fore this season. So me living down in Tassie now, I know people in the local basketball scene here who are also from up north who have played, I think, against or saw him play as a junior. And admittedly, I'm not too familiar with the level of competition on the Tasmanian North Coast. But he was apparently like that as a junior in that he was walking around like he owned the place. And this is all very like, dude, trust me, it's all third party sources.
Hey, run with it. I'm happy with it.
I'm relaying what I've been told by someone who's from Ulverston, which is a town just to the east of Burnie. I'm really getting into my Tasmanian weeds now, aren't I? But yeah, he had that attitude and that kind of come and get it mentality way back then. And I think, yeah, that really came up again this season. And it's kind of hard when you're playing in a team that is so bad to try and keep up that level of intensity throughout a season. But I think for a really young player, he was the leader of that team. You look at the quality of the rest of the roster and the guys they brought in to help shoulder the load there in terms of their imports. Rob Edwards had a pretty good season, but he was kind of up and down. And then Tanner Groves, Pedro Bradshaw, they were both kind of, I guess, just ancillary, follow the leader kind of players. So Taran Armstrong and really Sam Wardenberg were the two kind of dragging that club along, but two really young players. And I know the record doesn't speak for it, but I thought he carried himself very well.
No, 100%. Like you said, like not only to be the leader, but to be the leader that young, like 22, 23, whatever he is, maybe he's younger, but like whatever he is to actually be the leader and literally be the head of the snake. Like Adam Ford at the start of the season was like, hey, nah, this is you've got the keys to this franchise. Do what you need to. And clearly he did because he found that confidence. But like you said, him and Sam Wardenberg were the main shining lights. But I just hope he stays over there for a bit. Like even if we get to see him in summer league and he has that sort of spotlight, and I feel like players like Luke Travers, like people kind of just adopted him because of his mullet in G League. But I mean in summer league. But if you just have some performance that makes you stand out, then you're all of a sudden on NBA radars and people actually know who you are. So hopefully he has a game or two in summer league or G League or anything that actually catches people's attention.
Did you see, I don't know how much you follow the NFL, but did you see there's a Philadelphia Eagles player who's a defensive back, and he's white, which was like a whole big story in itself because it's traditionally not a white man's game playing defensive back in the NFL. But he had a mullet in the Super Bowl, and then someone saw a photo of Luke Travers like playing a couple of weeks later, and like, oh, Cooper DeJean, that's the guy's name. Look at his influence, and it's like, no. Travers had this. He's had this mullet for years. How dare you even like insinuate that he's like this is Australian culture.
Literally, every second kid is walking around with a mullet these days. Luke, I'm going to call Luke Travers out here because there was one media day, however long ago, when he was with, I think it was his Melbourne United days, so not too long ago, where he came up to me and Pete Hooley and was pretty much like, "I'm going to get rid of these like this hair, I'm going to shave it." But I'm pretty sure to this day he still has those luscious locks. So I reckon somebody needs to hold him accountable. He's getting older now, so he has to like be held more accountable. Really not important, but. Oh well, Luke Travers, stick to your word.
When you are I guess a fringe NBA player, you need
something
building up a cult hero personality. You know, it's something positive.
It helps build your brand.
Yeah, exactly. I do wonder if Armstrong is going to follow this. It's kind of the worry I think with him. The same trajectory of Jalen Galloway last year, because the same deal, signed with the Bucks on a two-way after the NBL season, and then headed over there. I don't think played a minute in the league, was exclusively G League, played the Summer League, and then by the time the roster cuts came around this past off-season, he was one of the last out the door, and he's back in Sydney now, which is great for me as a Sydney fan, but wanting to see players in the league. Different players, obviously. I think Galloway, better defender, much more athletic, but hasn't got the offensive refinement. But is there a worry that Armstrong follows that path and maybe gets recycled and then just kind of we never hear from him again in terms of getting an NBA crack?
I actually think that's a great comparison. Not in terms of like game style or anything, but in terms of like, hey, they're probably around the similar age when they went over. We're all like, hey, it's an awesome opportunity, and it is an awesome opportunity, but there's still positives and negatives with going over there. Because like if you don't make an impression, maybe you're not going to get that next deal, or maybe you're not going to stick, just like Jalen Galloway. Now, I'm sure if you ask Jalen Galloway, he's not going to regret going over there, or he's not going to say like negative stuff about it besides from, hey, would have been nice playing some more, whatnot. But it is an interesting discussion, like what this actually means for Taran. But I think regardless of how old you are or whatever, going over there for that opportunity has to be nothing but a positive. So we'll see how he does.
Yeah, and I think like Galloway's still super young. He might have been the same age. He's got time. It's just I thought like that's immediately when my mind went was this is what happened to Jalen last year. So
because you forget about it, really. Like you forget that he was with Milwaukee because it was just a short stint. Like we lost him for a bit over here, but yeah, I like the fact that you brought that up.
I don't think we did lose him at all because he signed, hung around for the end of the playoffs. Got bubbled out, went over there, and then was back here by the start of this season, and then got hurt. So he's really been out of sight, out of mind for like the better part of a year and a half.
That's a good call, actually. Yeah. I think you're right.
Speaking of athletic defenders, another great segue from me.
I like
it. It kind of cuts into another point. Like, actually, let's talk about them both together. So, Victor Wembanyama is now out for the season with blood clots, similar to Asar Thompson last year. Brandon Ingram had them a few years ago. They both returned. Chris Bosh had them. They found theirs a bit later, so his career ended because of it. I think they said it's one. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to sit here and say anything about like analyze. He's going to be this player when he comes back. I think from what we've seen from Asar Thompson as the most recent example, it takes a lot of time to get back to that level you're playing. Even now, I think you can see Thompson still gets gassed pretty quickly. He also plays incredibly hard, so that's another aspect of it. But yeah, pretty scary stuff when that came through.
That's what I thought. Like anytime you hear the words blood clot, and anytime you hear anything to do with health like that, you're like, okay, shit. Like first as a fan, you're like, I feel like we're very as fans, it's kind of like, oh, that sucks so bad. We're not going to see this man play basketball. But it's like, okay, when it's blood clots, you're like, okay, you have to obviously put your health first, and you have to do literally whatever you need to do to get healthy. And it's good that we actually have examples to kind of go by, besides from the Chris Bosh one retiring, but he was obviously a lot older than Wembanyama. But yeah, you can't blame Spurs for just literally playing it safe. They're probably one of the most safest organizations with that. Like, how often did they shut down Kawhi all those years ago? Like, they're going to play it safe with their franchise player. But, as a fan, it still sucks to see.
I think they literally can't play because he's got to go on blood thinners. And it's like, well, I think that's literally it. Like, you can't do any physical activity. So
you actually can't argue it. Like, the doctors will say what they need, like, say it and that's it. Yeah, you're probably right.
But the reason I bring up Wemby, aside from just touching on it, is the Defensive Player of the Year race is now wide open.
You know what? I'm going to give you credit here. That was a good segue. with
Thank
what you're
you.
about to say. That
Thank you.
was.
Because of this weird the 65 game rule now in the league that you can't that you have to be eligible to play 65 games to be eligible for awards. Dyson Daniels is now catapulted into the discussion. I won't say he's in the lead because I don't think he is, but another crazy steals run. I think he had 7 the last couple game, like
Yeah.
a couple of games ago. He had another 3 or 4. His most recent game, he's averaging 3.1 steals on the season, which I think would be on pace for the 8th most of all time.
Yeah.
I guess when he was buried on the bench in New Orleans, everyone knew what he could do defensively. I don't think anyone expected it to be at this level, though.
Nah, for sure not. Like, and I thought it was, he kind of started the season hot, and it was kind of like, okay, cool, he's actually playing well. But even myself, like, and I think maybe it's just because I'm in Australia and I'm from Australia, and you're like, okay, let's calm down on this guy until he actually is legit. But he has not slowed down at all. So I'm like, okay, fine, he's legit. And the fact that it's not just the Australian media talking him up, it's actually like like all the big names over in the States talking about him. It's very cool to see. And there's all like, I feel like there's a new stat about his steal leaders or whatever, like every 4 days kind of thing. And they just released another one. Like they just had like the graph of like total players with 7+ steals in a game, 6 steals, 5 steals, and all it read was like Dyson Daniels.
I've literally got that open in front of me.
All it said was Dyson Daniels. I'm like, well, the stats don't lie.
So yeah, so most games this season with 3+ steals is Dyson with 31 games with 3+ steals is insane. He's had 21 games of 4+ steals, 11 games of 5+, 7 games with 6+ steals, and he's had 7 or more 3 times. He's also on pace to be the first player to average 3 steals a game in over 20 years. I think he's got a 50-something steal lead over second place. I think it's Jalen Williams from memory. I can't remember. And I've always been kind of hesitant to say steals are an indicator of good defense because I don't think it always is. Because you can be gambling a lot and all this sort of... It's really hard to measure defense. It just is. Defense is probably the most eye test thing in basketball. You can give me all these...
Yeah.
You can give me all these advanced metrics and it's like... They're all weighted differently. Like some metrics value rebounding, which is why Andre Drummond will always be like a really good defender, even though I watched him and he was not. So when I see like high steal numbers, I go, well, let's pause. But then you watch him play and he's now earned the reputation of being a good defender so he can actually start getting away with stuff. Because if you watch him play, he fouls a lot, and they don't always call it, but he is grabbing dudes off screens, like off the ball. He's like sneaky vet moves, pulling jerseys, and like holding hands, and all this really crafty stuff that it's almost shocking that he hasn't played with Chris Paul, because it's got all the Chris Paul characteristics of like just being a narky little so-and-so.
A what? So no,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Yeah, no, you're right, and it's quite fascinating because I like what you said there. Like defense is probably like the one thing that you literally do have to watch an entire game for to be able to judge if someone is a good defender, and even not just one game because they might just play a good game or they might just play a bad game. But I was going to propose to you if it's not Dyson Daniels, like who is even leading Defensive Player of the Year? Like I was like, is it like someone like Evan Mobley? Like I mean Thompson, I love, but who do you actually reckon is leading if we're just trying not to be biased with Dyson Daniels?
I think it's either Mobley or Jaren Jackson Jr. were the two names that I threw out, or that I think. And it's hard. Like I don't watch every game, so I'm relying on a lot of people as well. But I think Mobley, what he's doing, being able, the defensive versatility to guard 1 through 5, the rebounding's there, the blocks are there. His defense leads a lot to Cleveland's offense, and then Jaren Jackson Jr. is just a bit of a unicorn as well. So I don't think there's a bad winner out of the group that is presenting itself now, because I think Victor was the runaway favorite.
Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of people will say it's really hard, borderline impossible for a wing defender to win Depoy, and it is. But then you also remember that Marcus Smart won a Depoy and Drew Holiday hasn't. So, like, nothing is fair.
I was randomly going to bring up Marcus Smart. I don't know why, but I was shocked that he actually is playing for Washington. Like when he got traded there, I was just like, Okay, well, obviously, there's no chance he suits up for that franchise. The next minute, he's doing that stand-up backflip type thing, whatever you call it, after his defensive slide yesterday. And I'm just like, okay, he's actually suiting up and he's actually doing media and stuff anyway. I just found that
Yeah,
fascinating.
I no, I'm with you. When him and Middleton both got traded there, I was like, well, keep them around the group, but like Smart. Middleton is hurt all the time, so like I wouldn't be surprised if they shut him down and then Marcus Smart. Like, what's the plan there? Are they going to buy him out? Whatever. But no, yeah, I'm with you. I was surprised that like, oh no, oh shit, they're playing.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
god.
so weird. It's so weird. I don't really get it, but I was going to touch on Dyson as well, like one of the last things or whatnot. But he's like a scorer almost as well. Like he's not just steal and defense. He's like averaging 14 a game, which again I thought it was just a hot streak, but now he's just like consistently showing up next to Trae Young every single game. So, I mean, credit to the man.
He's a bit of a zone beater because teams, especially with Jalen Johnson now out for the season and DeAndre Hunter in Cleveland, it's become, I guess, the way to defend the Hawks is you just double Trae Young and make the other four guys on the court beat you. And if you watch the Hawks play, Dyson doesn't really, like, his offensive role isn't just standing in the corner or standing on the wing and waiting for a catch and shoot three. He is flashing to the top of the key and he likes to attack. He's got the floater is probably, like, he's got the floater almost down pat. He's got a little bit
Yeah.
of playmaking in him. He can make easy reads. He's not breaking down defenders or anything, but he has really come along in his offensive game, and I think that almost started. I wonder if the Olympics really helped springboard him.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was actually, funny you mentioned the Olympics. I remember the time when all the team selection stuff was dropping and everyone was having their own takes. And I actually said to a few people, I'm like, I don't know if there's a place for Dyson. Like, I don't know if there's a place because obviously his defense is awesome and it was like in the warm up games and all that stuff. But boy, was I wrong because when he actually stepped there, and look at him now. I feel stupid. He's like this. He was almost like the best Aussie in the NBA at one stage before Giddey's like run lately, and probably still the question mark who is the best kind of thing. But hey, maybe Kyrie Irving is the best Australian now. I don't know how we do this. But no, it's quite funny looking back on me being like, I don't know if Dyson has a role on the Boomers, but I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah, no, I always thought they should have picked him. So
Yeah. Oh, thank you, thank you.
I do always lean to just automatically picking the NBA guys though. Like,
That's fair.
just get the, like, we're not America. Just get the talent there. Figure it out later. Like,
Exactly.
I'm not here for any of that. You mentioned Josh Giddey. His post All-Star break has been nothing short of very weird because
Okay. Yep.
like the Bulls, I don't know what they're trying to do. They're trying to lose, but also everyone else is like, I think the Bulls have won maybe 4 or 5 games out of their last 20, and they've not dropped a game in against Philadelphia and Brooklyn coming up behind them. The bottom of the bottom of the East playing race is complete dog shit. But Josh Giddey has been on fire the last few games, and I haven't got his box scores in front of me, but regularly dropping like 25 points or 15 rebounds, like really making that team his own ever since Levine got traded.
Yeah, for sure. And don't worry, Ben, I do have the box scores, so I'll read them off quickly. 27, the last 3 games. Last one was 27 points, 16 boards, as you alluded to, 4 assists. Before that, 24 points, 8 boards, 10 assists. And then before that, which I think was the first game since the All-Star, was 25 points, 16 boards again, which is, I don't know why he's rebounding so well, but hey, and 6 assists. So, I don't know. He's looked like I haven't actually watched any games, but purely box score judging, clearly he's feeling some kind of way. I don't know. I don't know what it is, and it kind of hurts me to say it because I'm a big Lonzo Ball fan, but maybe Josh Giddey just needs to be the starter and Lonzo just come off the bench. I don't know.
Well, I think
They're starting both, though. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Lonzo plays sometimes. Sometimes he rests because of his injury history. But I thought the extension for Lonzo was just a bit weird timing-wise because I thought they were certainly going to trade him. Then they signed him to the extension, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's just money to then match. But no, he's sticking around. But it's funny you mentioned the rebounding for Giddey because I think coming into the league, he was obviously known as someone who could get you a triple-double, but he was mainly known as, I think, a playmaker and a passer, and then he didn't get the nickname the Slob Wizard for nothing, right? With his sideline out of bounds.
What's with Australians and actual, like, quote unquote good nicknames with Dyson and him. It's fascinating. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't think either of those nicknames were Australian made though. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
I think Larry Nance gave Dyson the Great Barrier Thief, and I think some random on Twitter gave Giddey Slob Wizard in it because he quoted it like that's crazy. Slob Wizard or Timothy Chalamet, but yeah, like he was known as a passer, and then he's just really developed the rebound to the point like he's almost more a rebounder than a passer now, and it's crazy because he often becomes these one-man fast breaks where he just grabs the board and goes, and it's been a really interesting development to his game, along with him shooting, I think, over 40% from three in the last month or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great tie into, once again, playing well on the Boomer squad. Like, what that confidence must do to you is evident with him and Dyson. Like, if you put in a good tournament, and obviously it's Olympics, so it's glorified so much more on that big stage, but I mean, it's not like Giddey started amazingly, but maybe he's finally, like figuring it out. He's on Chicago now. Like maybe he's actually working out what his role is and how he can be most effective on this team. So we'll see if it's a hot patch like I thought Dyson's was, or he's just going to play like this for the rest of the season and beyond. Who knows?
Do you reckon they give him the big extension in the off season?
It's weird because, like you said, their guard spot's weird in terms of like you got like Dosunmu, Lonzo, Giddey. I know the league is more of a you can just plug and play these guys now, and Kobe White, like it's just kind of odd, but I reckon he'll stick around. I reckon he will.
I think there's Bulls fans who are scared that because, like, as great as Giddey is, he's got limitations on defense, which is very obvious if you watch him play. It's almost like if he just stayed on the half court line, it'd almost be the same level of defense. But that's
well, it's kind of like. Yeah, no, I mean, it's fair, I guess, but it's also one of those players that once he reaches the playoffs, which Bulls obviously probably not, I don't even know what their record is, but I would say no.
They're coming 10th. They are trying not to be there, but they will probably be in the play-in.
There you go. But once they make that big stage, he's one of those awkward players. Like you saw it with OKC, almost like not playing him or at least benching him or something. So you saw it then, and that's just the worry once he actually gets to those levels. A bit like Giannis and stuff. The guys that basically can't shoot. Giannis can obviously get away with just being a freak with what he does, but I can't believe that sort of made it seem like I was comparing those two.
Yeah, I was going to say, just slow your roll there.
I hope you got my drift. I hope you got what I was trying to say.
I think OKC is a weird situation though because like Shea developed at such an accelerated rate that it became okay, like this guy we have to get him the ball because I think the plan was for Giddey to be on ball a lot more, and then once Shea developed it's like, well, you have to be the on ball guy, and then Giddey doesn't really work off the ball for large stretches, so that's why his role kind of declined, and then obviously the trade I think worked well for both teams because the Thunder got Caruso and plug in his defense. Another guy, him and Lou Dort, who are both reputationally good defenders who get away with a lot of fouls. Chris Dunn, another one. I watched him play yesterday. Holy shit, he fouls a lot.
Man, I miss Chris Dunn is one of those random dudes, by the way, that he used to be on Utah, and for some reason I really liked him, and then he just he's not on Utah anymore, obviously, and you just miss him. I don't know. There's some players you just get drawn to for no reason. It's the most random players sometimes as well.
What about Malik Beasley?
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's another one. Well, he seems to love Detroit, so whatever, he can stay there. But yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, but it's like the OKC thing with Giddey was always like hurtling towards I think a divorce just because Shea's window. Shea has made the Thunder's window wide open, and it's like, well, we need to maximize the talent around this guy, and I don't think anyone's questioning Giddey's talent, but the fit obviously wasn't really there, so they got what they could for him. But then, also, like, you look at the situation in Chicago, it's a pretty weird mishmash of talent on that roster. And do they trade someone like Kobe White in the offseason? He's on a cheap deal. Do they trade Lonzo Ball? What do they do with Dosunmu? Like you said, do they sign and trade Giddey? Like, it's all wide open. I think Giddey's done enough to earn an extension of some sort. I've stopped trying to predict what players will get because the cap keeps going up, and I'll look at a number and I'll go, that's an insane number. And then I'll realize, oh no, it's actually like quite a small percentage of what the salary cap is now. So like I could throw out a number and it would sound ridiculous, but then it's like, actually no, this is the same as this 10 years ago.
Or it's like low balling. You're like, oh no, that was actually way off for the opposite direction. So you're right. It's hard to predict, but I don't know. I feel like if Giddey continues to play like this, I mean, there's always the argument. I was about to say if he continues to play like this, Chicago are obviously going to want to keep him, but then he's just promoting himself to other teams. Like then he's just sort of saying, "Hey, I can actually be this good of a player." So I really don't know, but I'm gonna say he stays.
Well, yeah, he's restricted, so like there's like a 95% chance he stays in Chicago. It's more just like
hot take.
oh,
Come on, I was kind
of. I know. I'm just saying, like, because it's yeah, like you trade for a guy. The Bulls aren't really going anywhere. They're not bad enough to get in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes unless they do a Cleveland. What year was that? The Andrew Wiggins draft, I'm pretty sure, was when they leapt like a stupid
Oh yeah, that's
amount
right. Yeah,
in the lottery to, or even the Bulls. I think actually the Bulls with Derrick Rose, I'm pretty sure weren't that highly favored in the lottery odds. So it can happen. If there's a draft to do it, it's either the Wemby one or I think Cooper Flag. But they're not bad enough for Cooper Flag, not good enough for doing anything outside of getting their shit packed in the like this. At best, they make the second playing game and lose to, at this pace, probably like either Orlando or I'm blanking now. Who's the other? Not Miami.
Wish I could help you.
Not Orlando.
Orlando
not,
or
no, it's not, Orlando is one of them, but there's another one. Oh my god, not us, mercifully. Nope.
do we look up the standings? Do you want me to?
No, this is so frustrating to me. Atlanta.
Why don't? Oh, okay.
Atlanta.
I was gonna let you stew on it and just like wait. So just the painful awkward silence, but that's all right. You got that.
Oh no, but the show's known for painful awkward silence.
It's a specialty. There was a point I was actually going to say. What was I going to say just then? You know what? I think I've lost it. I hope it comes back, but please continue.
I'll monologue while you stew now. But like the Bulls, I'll say it for the third time. They're too bad to get in the Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey,
Dylan Harper,
Dylan Harper. That's the third one. Sweepstakes. They're too good. They're too good to do that. They're too bad to be anything more than like a play-in fodder. And God forbid they make the playoffs as the 8th seed and get to play bloody Cleveland in the first round. That's going to be a 4-0 sweep. Similar to what Charlotte's going through right now with their last 4 games. I think the worst 3 or 4 game stretch in NBA history, just from points differential. They're losing by an average of 36 points a game.
Jesus. Goodness.
So, yeah, like the outlook for the Bulls, like the trade, they got rid of Levine. They get back a bunch of guys who don't really fit any sort of timeline. Like Kevin Huerter has fallen off a cliff since his really good run in Sacramento. Zach Collins is, I don't know what he does. He's just kind of like filling in the rest of the season. He was losing minutes in San Antonio to guys like Charles Bassey and Sandro Mamukelashvili.
Wow, good. So, nice one. That was good.
My last name is hard to pronounce. I have to give it to everyone else. Like I've got a lot of practice with it, all these things. So yeah, it's like I think signing Giddey gives them some sort of direction.
Yeah, no, I think it's just the mediocre stage. Like nobody wants to be in that middle ground where, like you said, you find yourself in the playoffs or you find yourself in the play-on, and you kind of know you're going to lose. You'd rather be really bad or really good, obviously. But in saying that, it's a lot. I'm making it sound easy to bounce out of that medium stage, but that's probably not where you want to be for a number of years.
Yeah, the worst place to exist in the NBA is the 9 to 12 range.
You're just chilling. You're just waiting around. You're like, well, I don't know when my next break is. Or do we just tank? Do we do what? Yeah, it's tough.
Yes. Speaking of existing in perpetual mediocrity this season, have you enjoyed watching the Sixers downfall this year?
And I was okay. So
are you a hater?
I don't know if I'm a hater, but I was literally trying to think of one positive about the Philadelphia 76ers. And do you know what I landed on? I'm going to give you a guess. What positive do you think I can pull out from their season?
It's Yabusele, I assume.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I've enjoyed his energy and his return to the league after dunking on LeBron in the Olympics and all that. So when I was trying to find a positive, that's all I could come up with. And it's not like even like Tyrese Maxey, who doesn't have the drama around him, but I feel like he's just been in and out. I feel like every time I see Joel Embiid actually in the lineup, I'm very like shocked. I'm just like, oh, okay, he's actually playing. But then the next 2 games, 3 games, whatever, people just talking about his injured leg, back, anything. So I don't know what Philly's future looks like. I don't know what Embiid's future looks like, because you hear all these things about his medical issues once again. I just hope he could somehow get healthy, but I feel like this is who he is. We have to accept that.
I'm not as quick to start proclaiming I'm enjoying Yabusele because of what he did to Exum in that EuroLeague, in that EuroLeague series.
We all cross the line sometimes. Just have to
never forgive, never forget. But
I actually forgot. I did forget.
No, but you're right. Like his like on a serious note, his play this season has been because I've watched I think more Sixers than I would care to admit, and even like Paul George has been an absolute disaster signing. I do appreciate that they complain about Tobias Harris and his contract and how he wouldn't really contribute when it mattered, and then they sign an older version of Tobias Harris. So that's one point. Joel Embiid, he's been alluding to for the last few weeks that, like, yes, I'm going to need surgery again to fix this knee. Whether that's excuses or, I choose to believe he probably is telling the truth. It's like he looks old on the court, for lack of a better word. He just looks like he's struggling. And then Tyrese Maxey, he just looks miserable. He doesn't, he's a player who I was always associated as having a great joy when they play.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's not bouncing around. He's not, it's just, it's kind of hard to watch.
Well, I feel like Tyrese Maxey, every time you heard him on a podcast or you heard people talk about him on a podcast, that was the number one thing they always said. He's just like a kid happy to play basketball. Like, he's just always joyful. So if Philly can sap the fun and the joy out of a man like that, then you know they're in a world of hurt. So I really don't know what the rest of the season looks like in terms of why fans are excited to watch, but hopefully there's some sort of positive. I don't know what that is, though.
Yeah, and the Western Conference equivalent, the Suns, just not as bad. But they're probably also not going to make the play-in, which, when you've got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, is... I'm not throwing Bradley Beal in there because I think he's kind of had a weird season, but you have an all-time great and another, top 15 player in the league, whatever you want to call Devin Booker, and you're 27 and 31, and you're just going backwards, and, you're almost overtaken by the Trailblazers this season. Come on.
It's weird, like you said, they're 27 and 31. They're not bad, but it's just the fact that they have Hall of Famers like KD and Book and all those guys, and you're just like, wasn't this the exact same position they were in last year in terms of we know what talent they have, but we also know that they're not really delivering. So they're kind of just floating around now. They're kind of just there. I don't know, when I used to think of Devin Booker, I used to get mad that Utah didn't draft him. I was like, wow, this franchise player, this really exciting dude could have been ours, and we drafted Trey Lyles instead. But then I was just like, now I don't think anyone's mentioned Devin Booker's name this season, and it kind of just goes to show where Phoenix are at. So it's a weird spot, but they're once again a team that I have not watched much of.
If you think you're mad, imagine how I feel about not drafting the kid who was a Pistons fan.
There's a few Detroit bad ones in the history, but...
but you can do that with... I know, Donovan Mitchell is another one. I think Halliburton in 2020 over Killian Hayes. But you can do that with any team. It's just ours are much more notable recently.
Yours hurt more.
Yeah. Yes. But no, Phoenix play very disjointed. They just don't seem to enjoy each other's company. Bud is completely disconnected, and I think there were Bucks fans saying, just wait, Budenholzer can get a great team over the hump, but are Phoenix a great team? It's evidence is saying no, and has the game passed Budenholzer by, and there were warning signs that he can't get a team to connect. They paid a first-round pick to get other firsts, and then they used some of those firsts to get rid of Yusuf Nurkic, except the guys they've brought back in aren't playing. So what was the point of that? Nick Richards, which is a separate trade to fix their center spot, he's now not playing, or not rarely playing. So Mason Plumlee is the best center they've got at the moment, which is just if this was 2018, that'd be awesome. This team is sweeping any series in 2018, 2019. But right now, it's what's the plan, fellas?
And it's also what's the plan? But weren't we in this position last year? As in, it was the point guard discussion. It wasn't that always it with them. It's hey, the big three ain't gonna work. Beal needs to get traded, or something needs to happen. So they got Tyus Jones, and I'm okay, cool. I don't know if that's exactly the guy he wanted, but they're not even starting him anymore. They've gone back to square one where Beal's starting. I mean, he played pretty well.
I think that's probably the right call though. Just quietly.
No, I don't mind it, and he's played very well the last two games, I think. So it's just weird that they're kind of back at, hey, Tyus Jones is on the bench. The lineup feels similar, and we're back.
Yeah, I think the infatuation with a traditional point guard has gotten a bit the other way now, where it's like Tyus Jones and Monte Morris, like, are meant to be your, like, if you've just got a talented dude who can handle the ball, like Devin Booker, just roll with that. I think you don't have to force feed Tyus Jones 30 minutes because he is a point guard.
It's true. But in saying that, that's kind of all that came out from last season. Everyone was like, well, it's obvious. They just need point guards, like traditional point guards. So I can't blame them for, I guess, trying, but I don't know what it is about that team right now. There's just something that's not working.
Well, they're starting Bol. That's kind of fun.
It's fun for, yeah. Oh, I mean, people love him. People
It's fun,
want to see more of him.
Shaq. That's all he spoke about at the All-Star weekend. Bloody hell.
Shaq's an amusing fella, isn't he? We gotta love him, and not so much sometimes. But hey, he's been around.
But yeah, the Suns are 2.5 games back of Sacramento for that last play-in spot, and I thought the Spurs had a fair chance to chase down from a little bit further back before the Wembanyama is obviously getting Fox. But like now, I don't think any of those teams are getting Sacramento. Like the Spurs, they're lost 3 in a row now that Wemby's down for the year. The Suns have lost 2 in a row, and they're just going backwards. And Portland are kind of frisky, but probably a year away. So what a disappointing season for Phoenix.
Portland are very weird. There's passages during the season where they just keep popping up with wins, and I don't really understand how to explain it. Then, like you said, you look at their record and they're like 25-33, but it's not great. But I feel like people expected a lot worse from them. So it's as the case is with every single season, weird stuff happens in the NBA, and I guess that's why we keep watching it. Yeah,
just quickly before we get to the last segment, I think I am one of the world's preeminent Anthony Simons fans. So
really,
I love. I wanted, before he kind of exploded again this season, I thought there might have been a chance to maybe buy low on him for a smart team. But yeah, no, I think he's sick.
I was never too into Simons, but when Scoot Henderson came into the league, I always get like fixated on when a hyped up point guard like comes into a shit team and like takes the reins. I'm like, this is awesome. He's gonna like be a star from day one. So the fact that Scoot has been pretty good this season, I'm quietly pleased with, but I guess he hasn't had that star quality.
Hey, he's like, I was worried for him after last season, but yeah, no, he's been really good this year, and the goggles don't hurt.
Yes, you kind of forgot about that. Yeah, I didn't realize that was the thing back then, but true.
All right, now before we get out of here, I think it's only fair that we talk about your workplace briefly. The NBL, the finals starts tomorrow night, is it? At the time
100%.
Time of recording.
See, so, you were, let me just say, you were big on your segues. You could have easily done the Dyson Daniels to Dash Daniels thing if you wanted to, but that's okay. But yeah, I know he's not playing, but it doesn't matter, Ben. No, I'm kidding. If you want to see someone like Dyson Daniels, come watch the NBL next year. Anyway, please continue.
So yeah, the Kings and Adelaide both get knocked down in the play-in, so now it's Melbourne versus
Perth. Yep. Melbourne, Perth.
Sorry, Illawarra first, and then Illawarra versus Southeast. Yeah. So who you got?
Who I got? Well, in these series, let me have a think. Well, I don't need to think, because I thought about who I have in the championship series, and I think it's going to be Perth versus Illawarra. So even though I'm Melbourne based, there's no Melbourne bias in me. I think there's going to be both Melbourne teams eliminated, but I don't know. Illawarra have been like number one, I want to say, majority of the season, and Perth, I just think there's something about Perth this year. I think the way Bryce has been playing and the way Doolittle has been playing, I can literally see them winning another one. Yeah, they
seem more balanced this year than they did last year. I think Doolittle coming back for his second season has really helped. Manza's playing really well, and then like guys like Ben Herschel as well. Like almost gives Cotton an out to rest for a possession or two if you have these other talented dudes who can create for themselves, because I think the last couple of seasons that the Perth have kind of been missing that. I mean, like Cotton's had MVP level seasons, don't get me wrong, but Perth have kind of missed that secondary, what's the word, like release valve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Keanu Pinder as well, been killing it as of late. And I think you mentioned Christian Doolittle before, and Andrew Bogut said on one of our podcasts today that Doolittle might be just as important as Bryce. And I kind of get where he's coming from, because like that man, I didn't realize he could score like he can. Like he always makes me laugh, because like he's he's bigger than everyone in terms of like his frame is bigger than everyone, and he kind of just like waits around to get to that mid-range area every single time, and he kind of just rises up like there's no one in front of him. It makes me laugh, but he's really good, and we know what he can do defensively. So I don't hate that take that he's just as important as Bryce, because I think it's kind of true.
And then just quickly, Southeast. What a turnaround for Josh King. Sydney South as well. There's Sydney South and there's Sydney. Where's the other Sydney? There's two Sydneys. Nah, it's Adelaide. Sydney Southeast and Sydney Southwest. But you bring in a bunch of Kings, Geordie Hunter, Angus Glover. You get in a new coach, because I don't think anyone really thought Mike Kelly was going to work. That was kind of a weird. Just like let's see what happens. But yeah, what a turnaround for the Phoenix as well.
No, they've been awesome. It's been like those stories are great. Like I knew nothing about Josh King. I knew nothing about like where he's been, where he's come from. But some personalities just come into the NBL, and like obviously he made a massive difference right away from Phoenix, but he also made a massive difference to like the public and the fans. I feel like he's just a really likable dude. So I don't know. He gets up and down that sideline like he's playing, and I don't know how he doesn't lose his voice every single game. But the turnaround has been key, and guys like Angus Glover and Geordie Hunter, like you mentioned, like they've been a massive part of it. Even though Geordie Hunter's kind of odd with his minutes. I don't know how much you paid attention to Hunter's minutes, but they're kind of like sometimes he'll play as a starter, and sometimes he'll come off with like 11 minutes for the game. It's kind of odd.
Yeah, he kind of did that last season too. But I also don't put any stock into the Kings coaching last season.
That's fair.
Mahmood. But Matt Hurd as well, like NBL first team, MVP candidate, obviously didn't win it. Bryce Cotton won his 5th. But yeah, like a guy who I knew from his time at Memphis in the NBA, but I didn't think he had this level of scoring in his locker.
Nah, and another dude that I'm going to say that I feel like he just started hot, but he didn't stop. Again, like he started hot, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I just have to have more self-belief in these guys. Maybe I got to stop thinking like he just played 3 good games and that's it. But he just kept doing it. So he's been great. I wonder if he'll be one of those names that stick around the NBL. That's always kind of exciting and intriguing to think about. But I don't want to like
price himself out.
Maybe. Yeah, true. That's always a worry as well. But I don't want to ride Phoenix off completely, but I just think the way that Illawarra have played this season, they are going to be too strong. But I'd love to see Phoenix win it, like even win that series, just because they've always been that team where they've flirted to keep going and like actually make the playoffs and do well. But they're finally here this year, so they can finally do some damage. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Kings fans say, "Oh yeah, we're cheering for Illawarra now." I guess because of New South Wales. And I'm like, no thanks. Like, I can't. In my mind, I cannot reconcile. I don't hate Illawarra, but I just can't reconcile going for them. But, yeah, it's like I think the Phoenix have a really good shot. Illawarra is not immune from a brain fade every now and again, as you saw in that game against Cairns. But I do think it's going to be Illawarra versus. I actually think Melbourne have a really good chance because they've got the home court. You know, Golding and Delhi and Ian Clark have all obviously done it before in the playoffs. They kind of know what it's about. I think having the home court will be key for Melbourne, given how they play and, for lack of a better term, how they grift. Some calls, and I know Cotton's pretty good against the free throw line himself. But I'm not going to go to the point of like what the fans are now starting to chant at SGA with the free throw merchant stuff. I'm not going that far. But I think in such a series with such fine margins, I think home court could do it. So I'm going to go Illawarra and Melbourne.
I like it. It definitely could result in that way, but it's always fascinating. I think the thing we always love about the NBL is how close it is. Like, it's easy for someone like me who's on the inner to say that, but you can't really argue it. Like, every single time it's just like close, and you're like, well, the last game matters. The last game matters. So, once again, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
So who wins the series, the final series, and a finals MVP?
That is a
very good... In how many games, sorry?
Oh, true. It's a very... so I'm going to say Perth Illawarra in the championship series, but I haven't actually thought about who I think will win it all, but I'm really bad at sitting on the fence. Yeah, I'm really bad at sitting on the fence, so I'm going to go Perth 3-2, and obviously Bryce, finals MVP. That's all I'm thinking.
Wow.
Thoughts?
Really pushed the boat out on that one.
Yeah, well, you know what? That is a bad answer, but it's just, I don't know. It's just the way. It's like the MVP race. Like I try to talk myself into Kendrick Davis being a legit shot, and then I thought he was at some stage, but I don't think you could ever say Bryce was not going to win that thing.
Yeah. I'm
What about
going to
you?
go
Yeah.
Illawarra in 5. Trey Cal Finals MVP.
Don't mind it. Don't mind it at all. Well, it's always that thing, like, who's the alpha on that team, whether it's, I mean, even Sam Froling, but I was going to say Tyler Harvey or Trey Kell, so that finals MVP would be fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a very good place to leave it. Darren, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find your wonderful work before we let you go?
Oh, I like this part of the show where I get to talk about myself a bit more, but no, just Instagram, Twitter, DJ Beat Darren. I'm pretty sure it's both on those, but thanks for having me. This was fun. Always came to talk basketball, so we shall see who wins the NBL and if Philly, Phoenix, all those teams can do something. If Dyson... Oh, there's been many topics. Well done. Well done on this run sheet.
Thank you. It's one of my more well-organised ones. But yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future. You can follow the podcast. I'm talking to the audience now, not you. You can follow the podcast at Beyond the Fence, wherever you get your podcast, beyondthefence.com.au. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.